Every morning, the team at The Exchange meets to talk over what we think the top stories of the day should be and why. Here's a look behind closed doors and what we think makes the cut. Today marks the beginning of the end of home mail delivery for some Canadians. Canada Post says we mailed almost 1 billion fewer letters last year than just a few years ago. It's phasing it out, ending all urban door-to-door mail service by 2019. The new system is expected to save Canada Post between 400 and 500 million a year. This got us talking about the future of the service and our right to have home delivery. You could argue, like Estonia just did, that instead today internet access is the equivalent of mail in the 1800s, and that's your constitutional right.
We're not talking about getting mail. We're talking about
home delivery.
Get it at your doorfront.
And a lot of us that don't live in large centers that have had mail delivered for 150 years.
This is an us versus
already don't get mail delivered to our door.
We would all agree from a business point of view that it is the right thing to do.
An obvious sign that we are not paying what we should be for our mail.
Of course.
If somebody could tap into what market price is, I think there's a business to be made.
Someone needs to start a business doing this across the country.
I think that's it.
Wait, I have an idea. I have a great idea for a business. What if you put a stamp on something, take it to a box, and somebody takes it where you want it to go?
Just out of curiosity, though, who here's mailed a letter in the last 2 weeks?
2 weeks? What?
Well, I mean, that used to be rare.
That's adorable.
The millennial? What?
A new class action lawsuit pits junior hockey players against the Canadian Hockey League. Junior hockey players sometimes get as little as $35 a week. They're certainly working more than 40 or more hours. At the heart of the disagreement is how each side classifies the players. The CHL says they are amateur student athletes and the league provides important experience. The class action alleges players are really employees who provide services to the team and that current contracts violate minimum wage laws. The lawsuit seeking $180 million in outstanding wages, vacation, and overtime pay. None of the claims have yet been proved in court. Some of those details sparked this conversation in our story meeting this morning.
Is the system that is recruiting players for the NHL the most advantageous for the NHL and the best for the kids?
I bet you if you go to those 15-year-olds and say, do you want this opportunity? Do you want to get to the NHL? They're not going to say, no, I must make $20 an hour or I'm not going to move to North Bay. They're going to say, get out of my way.
I imagine a lot of the thrust of this lawsuit is the kids who are just the plugs.
I have a friend who played in the OHL and he was given a car, but I still think he made the $35 a week that they're talking about.
It's a system that works. It just, I think, doesn't work particularly well.
It seems clear that the trend against exploitation of young people for the benefit of professional sport is, going all the same direction. The question is how best to get there, right? A few months ago, football players at Northwestern University in the U.S. voted to form a union. Junior hockey players have tried to do so in the past, but without success. If you would have asked us a couple weeks ago if Rogers and Netflix are friends or enemies, the answer seemed obvious. As of this morning, a little less so, maybe frenemies. The former competitors are teaming up on a Canadian TV series. The surprise move and the Canadian twist had us wondering if there was some extra motivation behind this deal. So they're creating original Canadian content.
Well, it's a TV show which is going to be happening in Canada, so it's not like a Canadian show the way we would imagine it.
It's not telling our story.
Right, exactly. It's not telling our stories.
It's not Beachcombers.
That was a show from the 70s. Just checking. Wouldn't that be great if they could have said to the regulator, actually we are partnering with Canadian producers?
My question is there any part of this where they're saying, hey, CRTC, look at this. We're hearing you.
Canadian producers.
It just highlights their disdain for we're not even going to bother telling you that we're doing exactly what you're asking about.
Yeah.
We got this, leave us alone.
You'll remember the CRTC asked Netflix for its Canadian subscriber numbers and content. Netflix wasn't budging. We likely won't find out if this plan took shape before or after those requests. The Canadian connection is only one part of this story, though. It's also another sign that even cable companies think Netflix is on to something with its streaming, and of course, Rogers isn't the only one. Just last week, HBO announced it will offer a standalone internet option. Customers can stream online rather than sign up for a massive cable package just to get the specialty channel. That'll start sometime next year. CBS already has similar plans. Not all networks are eager for an unbundled future, though. An AMC exec recently said the level of investment and creative risk required to create groundbreaking original programs could simply not be supported if AMC was marketed as an a la carte service. And Peter Armstrong is with me now. I find that a fascinating line of argument. It almost by definition means I'm going to force you to buy stuff you don't want in order to pay for stuff you do want, and I'm not going to tell you which is which because it's the only way that my model is working.
There's that, and there's the fact AMC was once the insurgency, and
Right.
now they're acting as the legacy provider. The way in which this sort of debate has moved over the last bunch of years is fascinating. And the fact is, they're saying they can't make enough profit. They're not saying they can't make a profit.
Yes.
Because Netflix has shown, A, that people will buy it. You can make good money off this, and that's how people want to consume. So HBO, CBS, everybody's inevitably going to get on board. AMC is just saying, we can't go all the way there yet because we've got too much dough wrapped up in the legacy.
Yeah, I mean, I think the analysis that we would agree with is that there is a bit of an inflection point here when we saw HBO. Now, HBO has been one of the most successful content creators, and there are many people in the world, and we can who around this table is one of them, takes cable to get HBO.
For that
it
reason
is
alone.
practically
That's right.
the only reason, other than some good news programming you might want to watch.
Sure.
And HBO saying it will go over the top, as it's called, and abandon those cable relationships, to me, is a pretty important moment that says to cable, you better figure out what your future is. And then you get people like CBS saying, we're going over too. We see
Sure.
this as the future.
And remember, like when you look at the stats on this, it's less about the cord cutters, the people that are abandoning cable, as it is the never had, the people who
Right.
never bothered in the first place. And that's growing, and the existing customer base, like 2012 was the high water mark. They actually saw customers drop in 2013.
Yep.
So where are your customers? They're there. They want to
They're
pay.
those
They want to
millennials, right?
consume.
Yeah.
But they're not just the millennials.
But Peter, there is an argument to be made here. I mean, so one part of this that's so fascinating is it's very rare to see incumbent businesses actually disrupt themselves, which is
For
what
sure.
CBS is doing to its credit. But the argument about how you pay for the content, I think, is a good one. Even with Netflix, I'm a little bit flummoxed at how they think $8.99 or $9.99 if you're a new subscriber is going to pay for a whole bunch of original programming.
And they say they're going to spend, I got here, $8.9 billion in the next few years on original content.
Right.
You know, they've got this Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, they've got a bunch of Adam Sandler movies. They are buying up the content, and they're still making money.
Right.
You know, you look at the music industry. Napster died, 10 years ago, was declared illegal. Last year, they still sold 40% of total profits in revenue in music industry was digital.
Right.
So, I mean, it is there. You can do it.
So the question, though, is what it will be the funding model. I think AMC is right. I think it's really interesting that the distribution side of this business is dead or dying, right? It's not anymore. That you own the pipe is going to be less and less important than that you own good content people will pay for.
Sure,
No, you
and I think a divergence in that, and I think we're seeing a bit of that with the Rogers deal. That Rogers will make most of its money off selling internet access, and doesn't need to make content if somebody else can make it for them, or
Right.
at least go into partnership with them.
So then it comes back full circle to Netflix in its turf war with the regulator in Canada, and it seemed to me at the time that what Netflix was saying was, we don't really know what you guys do, we don't know why you do it, we don't want anything to do with it, and it may well be they're right. It may well be that that regulating this market when it's changing so fast and it is no longer going to be over the airwaves, so to speak.
sure.
Maybe
And
we
the
need to
ability,
rethink.
that train, I think, has already left the station. That the ability of the regulator to go back now and regulate online streaming content is there would be a riot.
Is it,
in the
or
street.
should we all insist that it now happen? Just because it hasn't been regulated, shouldn't we now say, if you believe in Canadian content, if you want Canadian production supported, maybe we do try to regulate the internet? Why not? We can do
I think we
anything.
should welcome that debate. I don't think it's going to go the way the regulator would.
You
like
don't?
it.
So
I
does
don't.
that mean that means the end of, I made a joke about telling our stories, but that probably does mean the end of a lot of programming. Some people
Well, it means an end of the way we've done it until now. And I think the desire for a creative community to tell our stories, as you put it, does not diminish and has only actually grown in their ability to distribute it. There was a day where the only way to get it into every household in the country was through a national broadcaster.
Right.
That case is no longer. You can get it to anyone, anywhere. You don't need the broadcast regulator
if
to
they
make
have
that
good
happen.
broadband, and that's the other piece of
For
this.
sure,
actually.
and that's a big question, and
Yes.
that's not the fault.
Which
of-
isn't a slam dunk either, right? As many
Oh, sure.
have discovered, it's hard to do good streaming.
I was
Even
an hour and a
Netflix.
half north of the city this past week and had, the world's worst internet. I had better internet when I had dial-up in college.
Right.
You know,
That must have been tough on you.
it was very hard.
Thanks, Peter.
You bet.